Let's now move on to discuss kinds of stance. In popular terms, recently we agree in critical discourse analysis and later studies that there are major kinds of stance which has been furthered by Maria Giorgallo in one of her recent studies. First among them is epistemic. Epistemic is about knowledge and beliefs. This not only is concerned with what kind of knowledge or beliefs are available there in a certain stance, rather it is also about how certain or uncertain, how sure or unsure those beliefs are, in to what extent a speaker is sure about what he or she is saying or what he or she is conveying to the audience. So stance is about the strength of the knowledge or beliefs is also, and it also deals with the sources of knowledge or beliefs which has been expressed in a stance. So where does those come from, or what kind of background knowledge is involved in the making of those beliefs is also related to epistemic stancing. Epistemic stances can be made through various linguistic sources. For example, adverbs. There can be adverbs which shows certainty. For example, the adverbs like certainly, in fact, undoubtedly, obviously, assuredly can be used to convey some kind of affirmation or certainty in the stance. Similarly, there are adverbs which express likelihood or uncertainty or doubt. For example, the words or adverbs like apparently, perhaps, possibly, evidently, roughly, allegedly, they show some kind of doubt in the information which is conveyed in a certain stance. Similarly, modals can also be used. For example, can, could, must, may. These can be used to convey certainty and uncertainty in a stance. Further, we can see there can be complement clauses controlled by verbs, which can convey some kind of epistemic stancing. There could be such verbs which express certainty in form of words like conclude, determine, know, demonstrate, realize. They all convey some levels of certainty. But in comparison, we can see there can be verbs or clauses controlled by verbs which express likelihood or doubt. For example, believe, doubt, think, appear, happen, seem, tend. They all convey some levels of uncertainty. We can also have sentence complement clauses controlled by adjectives which express certainty. For example, the adjectives like certain, clear, obvious, sure, uh, possible or impossible, true, they can convey some levels of certainty in through adjectives. Then there could be adjectives expressing uncertainty or doubt, and these include unlikely, possible, probable, alleged, dubious, uncertain. In addition, there can be stance complement clauses controlled by nouns, and they can express certainty. For example, nouns such as conclusion, fact, observation, assertion, they convey certainty. In contrast, there could be some nouns which convey uncertainty or doubt. For example, the words like assumption, claim, observation, implication can show some kind of epistemic uncertainty. We need to concentrate on the thing that we are not bound to use only one source at a time. There could be more than one linguistic resources which can be used to convey some kind of epistemic stance, and we could make use maybe all of them or some of them while making our stances. In this example, which is in front of you on the screen, if you see the highlighted words here, they convey some kind of stance, epistemic stance. If I just read it out, I'll be spending the first night of Passover with friends at a restaurant in Delray. The menu will be a traditional Passover meal with all the fixings. I would say that most of the population in this area either eat out or order a complete dinner and have it at home. I mean, just looking at the menu, he would probably get a view, and he's not pretty certain. If you just look at the highlighted bold expression down here, I would say that it shows some levels of uncertainty, some kind of uncertainty. He's not sure about it, rather he's pretty uncertain. So this shows the epistemic stancing here. Then there could be another kind of stance, attitudinal or affective, which shows one's feelings or thoughts, maybe personal perspectives about a certain object, and this could be conveyed through adverbials such as ironically, fortunately, fear, love, like, or the words like happy, angry. They all convey your feelings or personal perspectives. For example, in a statement in front of you, I confess these events upset me. The words confess and upset both shows one's feelings or thoughts about or personal perspectives about a certain object under discussion. One openly confesses, which is a very emotional state, and then being upset is also an emotional state. And this is a kind of emotional stance towards certain thing about the events which are under discussion, which obviously we would understand when we know the context of this discussion. The third and another important kind of stance is stylistic. Stylistic stancing is based on the way a certain stance is being made. How you say it, or the kind of words you use to say it, also have a bearing, a very strong bearing on the meaning. Simply speaking, if you say something loudly, it may have a different meaning, and if you say something softly, the same thing softly, that might have a different meaning. So your stance might vary by the way you say it. Therefore, stylistic stancing or stylistic stance making can be another kind of stancing. Speaker writer comments on communication itself. The words like honestly, with all due respect, they convey some kind of stylistic. When you want to say something and you use in advance the words like honestly or with due respect, it molds the meaning of what would be said later on. So this can be taken as stylistic stancing. To me, the Marvel superheroes just had more complexity, even more humanity, if I may put it like that. I mean, this is a kind of very clear stylistic way to emphasize on a certain thing. We have some other kinds of stances also. One comes from Du Bois in studies published in 2007. According to him, there are two major kinds of evaluation, two major kinds of stance involving evaluation. For example, evaluation may consume or subsume the previously discussed kinds of epistemic and affective stancing. So, and according to Du Bois, this is one of the most common and most effective kinds of stancing, where people show their knowledge about certain thing or show their emotional reaction to certain thing. He also talks about alignment, which according to him involves the act of calibrating the relationship between two stances and by implication between two stance makers or speakers. And through alignment, the researcher argues that we try to show our consent or agreement with a certain point of view with expressions like I agree or I disagree. And it not only reduced to showing our agreement or disagreement to a certain point of view or stance being furthered by somebody else. Rather, it also involves our desire to continue with that discussion or that interaction through which we are making stances or not. So the act of allowing some discussion to go on is itself a kind of alignment. So these are various kinds of stances in front of you, and there could be some other kinds discussed by other authors also. But I think this survey of these kinds of stances may be enough to make an initial understanding of the kinds of stances.